Welcome back to Tips from the Top. I'm your host, John Prieto. We're here in the village of Carlsbad at JP Mortgage, where we've been helping the real estate community for over 25 years. And today's topic is investors, particularly investor loans. And with me today is Senior Vice President of Home Bank, Jim Murray. Thanks for coming in, Jim.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure.
Well, I want to do a little back and forth on how I do business and how you do business. Okay, so we're both lenders, but you look at things a little differently than the way I do. Okay, and I want to start with when I get a request for a pre-approval, I gather the borrower's information and I enter it into some desktop underwriting software, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and we fiddle with the numbers until we come to a green light. Is that how you start looking at a file?
Not really. Again, what you're doing is primarily single-family residences. Mm-hmm. What we do is mostly other than that, although we do some single-family residences for investors. But no, we're looking at the property first. We need to understand the property and how that property is going to service our debt, preferably, and also what we're up against. Very unique properties in many cases.
So you mentioned service the debt, okay? What we primarily obsess over is DTI, debt to income ratio, the percent of the debt as a percentage of the income of the borrower. Now you mentioned debt service.
Right.
So is that what you're looking at primarily? And can you explain that?
DTI is important, but the debt service ratio is a formula based on the net operating income that the property either produces now or would potentially produce. So it's different. It's geared towards the property. Our lending is always property driven, not just based on the individual, and then they can buy whatever house they want for X number of dollars.
So you mentioned primarily cash flow. Let's say I have a property that I'm using for an Airbnb.
We do them. We've done a number of them through the years. Those are typically a 1 to 4 unit residential property, of course. But there's so many other types of properties out there. And we've made loans on so many different types of properties, and each one's unique. And people are unique.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have had some type of an issue. And that is not necessarily a problem for us. We need to understand it. But we also try to make sure that we're approving a loan and we make the loans, not just turn them down.
Speaking of borrowers and situations, whenever I have a sophisticated borrower, it's very, very common that they have their property wrapped in an LLC. And that is a dead end for many traditional lenders. Do you have a problem with LLCs?
Never. Never. LLCs are fine. C Corps, S Corps, partnerships, trusts. I know some lenders will make people take it out of that entity and so they can make the loan, but that's never an issue for us.
Well, if you're in an exchange, you can't take it out.
Of course you can. Right.
Okay.
Tax liabilities
Yeah,
are
you bet.
a major issue.
So give me an idea of the kinds and the different types of properties you've done here in San Diego.
John, I've done loans on just about everything, from land to houses to apartment buildings, office buildings, bars, restaurants, hotels, really you name it. Every type of real estate, pretty much.
Do you have a maximum loan amount?
$6 million, typically, yeah. And no minimum.
No minimum. Well, that's important when you
especially for a small investor.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he can't afford the $6 million house.
Well, that's good information. I appreciate it. So I'm hoping that your takeaway is twofold. Number one, we begin to think outside the box. You have an investor, get off the MLS and Zillow and Redfin and start looking for some commercial properties to fit your investor's needs. That's number one. And number two, don't focus on DTI. Look at the debt service coverage ratio. And if you need some help understanding it, it's easy. Just give me a call and we can go over that and cap rates. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you, John.
And thank you for watching. And stay tuned for another episode of Tips from the Top. I'm your host, John Prieto.